Hi, and welcome to our tissue box project today. What I have here is I have a black painted tissue box that has a lid. I slip the tissue box in here, put the lid on, and it's got a neat little scallop detail. This tissue box is an interesting thing to prep. It's not very difficult, but as I'm sitting here trying to debate which way I want to go with this and show you the best way, there's a number of ways you could do this. First of all, if you have just galvanized, you would wash it in a vinegar and water bath, and you would scratch at it with like one of your green scratchy sponge kind of things. And that way you just scuff it up and then you rinse it and dry it. This has got no oils on it. You do the vinegar to cut the oils and things that they spray on galvanized. This doesn't have any oils on it, and I think what I'm going to do with this is first I'm going to go ahead and try some multi-purpose sealer and my black paint and see how I do with this. So I'm going to go grab that stuff and we'll see, and we'll do a little scratch test and do a little learning as we do. I'm going to mix 50% of my paint adhesion medium. Look what I found. I've got a new pop topper right here that will separate that plastic stuff. It even gives it a little rip right there, so I can just peel that off. So I'm going to put 50% of my paint adhesion medium in with my paint and find a paintbrush. Now I could palette knife this, but this particular brush comes with like a little palette knife back end to it, so I'll just use that. If you mix it with your paintbrush, then you make a big bloody mess on your paint brushes, and you have to clean all that paint out. It's too much, too glommy. Okay, wipe that off. Now I'm going to do two sides of this and see what we get. I'm not doing any extra prep to this on this side. This is paint adhesion side, and so I'm just going to go ahead and put a nice coat on there. Okay, and I'm using a filbert. Let's see, a filbert glazing brush, oval glaze brush. That's what it is. I always search for those words. Okay, then on this side right here, and I'm going to mark that inside, a little piece of tape maybe. So one side is our PA side. I'll put that right there. Alright, and now I'm going to do this side. I'm going to only put this multi-purpose sealer on my piece. And so I will just only multi-purpose seal, except for where I'm running into this other paint medium. Whoops. I don't want to splash myself. Alright, stop it. I'm going to be wearing more multi-purpose sealer than my pieces. You want to make sure you get into those cracks and grooves. That is the place where you can fail the most with your finishes. Okay. Now on this side, I'm going to have to hold this one up now. I'm going to take a little bit of the paint and the medium together on this side. And now I'm going to do exactly what I told you not to do and mix it with my brush. Okay. Now I like the idea of mixing paint into my medium because then that gives me a head start on base coats. I like that this piece is already black because that gives me a head start on black base coating. I don't have to prime it. Now what I could do, and I'm going to just go ahead and dry this upside down, what I could do, grab this. I also could very easily use my Krylon indoor-outdoor spray primer. This is a flat black. I could just spray the whole thing. I would want to use a mask for this so that I was being safe and follow manufacturer's directions. But I think in this case the piece is small enough, and it really does feel like it has a little bit of a tooth to it. I guess it's probably because of the finish that they put on it. So, and it's definitely baked on there nice and hard. So now what I have to do is I have to dry this, and then I'll do a little scratch test and we'll see how they So this is, I blow dried it with the blow dryer, obviously. And this is the side with the paint adhesion medium. And I'm a little concerned it's a little too early to do this. I'm just kind of being impatient to do my scratch test, but I already kind of just did a little bit. This one has a kind of a good tooth feel to it. Let's see, I went this way. This side has, you know, and it also feels just a little bit tacky, but it has, you know, it's a okay tooth. And then this has quite a bit of tooth. So the paint that we're mixing in with the mediums is giving us a little bit of tooth. So what I'm going to do is gently, because normally you engouge. Okay, I'm going to scratch and ta-da! Nothing scraped off. Which means that when we get that, now you can see my scratches, but when we run through it with a little bit of spit, you can see that nothing has scratched off. Now we'll go to just the multi-purpose sealer side. Okay, and once again, nothing scratched off, so that's great. And now this is the multi-purpose sealer side with the black paint. Okay, nothing scratched off there. So any one of these three mediums would work for you. And you go ahead and just get everything base coated. I would go ahead and do 2 coats. The idea, and make sure that you allow them to completely dry, so I would give them overnight at least, depending on how thick and stuffy your paint is. And I am going to go ahead, I'm going to use the paint adhesion medium. I'm thinking that that's an interesting medium. I hadn't heard of it before, and I have a big old pile over there. And it says that it'll even do plastics and things like that, so that, in my mind, just begs for this to get my new jar pop topper that lifts open the pop tops. I was going to spray this, but let's give us, now this is very, very shiny. I think we need to give this one just a little bit of tooth. Let me grab a sanding disc. Anytime you have something real shiny, you got to give it a little bit of tooth. Okay, so we'll wipe everything off, and let's go ahead and see what sticks. Okay. I hate that there are these bright colors, and then I'm going to go and paint them another color, but I want to paint my surface. I think it's just a fun little surface that we can have to open our bottles and stuff, and we've got to personalize them. Okay, and now spray paint might be a really good choice with this one, but I'm going to go ahead and try it, and we'll see how that works, okay? In the meantime, I'll get my piece base coated. When you have a project on your tin that you need to make sure that it's straight and not wonky, sometimes if you just lay it out on there, it's not going to lay out so good. I want to make sure that that line and the word is absolutely straight, because if it isn't, it's going to look terrible. So I'm going to get out my Yellow Monster marking tool, and I'm going to mark a line under there. See if I can't get this straight. The Yellow Monster marking tool will come off with your saliva. It'll come off with an eraser, and it'll come off with your varnish. So you can always, you know, if you want to mark the areas on your flower that you know needs a highlight or a shade or something like that, it will come off no matter what you do to it. So you can always rest assured that that's a mark that you can make, that will temporarily mark, and you can get it back off again. Okay, it still looks downhill to me, so I am going to eyeball this from the opposite direction. The T-square should straighten me out, but we've got this little lump over here, and I think it's high on, stand up and get a better perspective. I think I'm high on this end. Just enough. There we go. I think that's better. Use our... Okay, I'm going to use a durable flat brush. A lot of times when you have flat brushes, they are not always the most durable. You can really scuff up the edge real quick. This one is a Royal flat brush, and it just will hold float, and it will base coat just beautifully, and it's got a nice chisel. I'm going to base coat, and when we're base coating, let me show you a little cute trick that we can do. Instead of base coating right on the edge of your piece when you're doing this, you want to start with your color inside, away from the edge just a little bit, and then you want to push on your bristles and then scooch it up next to there, and then smooth everything out. Better to do 2 thin coats than 1 thick one. But by doing this base away and then scooching, then what happens is you eliminate ridges. So no ridges are a prettier base coat, and your second coat will cover. So we'll just follow the base coating directions that are in the pattern and get everything based. Do several coats until you have it fully covered. Okay, I've got my base coats on, and one of the nice tricks, we've got this green stretchy tape, which actually tapes in a circle, and it will go, you know, it'll tape a band or whatever like that. But what's great is I need that measurement up from this rim that I was having a hard time with because of the fact that it scooches out right there. So what I can do is I can just use my 1/2 inch tape, and I've got this in 1/8 quarter and 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, and I can make it whatever size I want it to be. So very handy little thing. So I'm going to tape both sides. This is a low tack tape. You never want to use anything high tack on tin. And I'm going to use my, whatever color I say it is, honey brown. Now, a way that you can keep your paint from bleeding under the lines right there, if you wanted to, is I could take my black paint, my base coat color in other words, and I can put my base coat color underneath on this tape, and what that's going to do for me is it's going to bleed under and seal off any little bubbles underneath the tape. So as soon as that's dry, I can put my coat of my other color on, and it won't bleed under, and you'll have a clean, you'll have no bleed tape line. And what you can also do is when you're on a stained background, you can use a matte varnish, and you can matte varnish to seal up any of the things, or pickled backgrounds and things like that. That'll seal in the tape, and then you do your color on top of it, and that makes that all good. Okay, I want to do my lettering. When I want to do that, I'm going to take a round brush and I'm just going to flatten it into my paint, and that's going to make it like a really microscopic little flat. You can add just a pinch of water for it to flow a little better. Not too thin, just a little thin. And load it a little bit high on your brush. Okay. And then I'm going to use it just like you would a flat. Boy, I need a different level of glasses here. And try to do things gracefully. Maybe I could take my own advice, huh? Okay, and then just nice fell swoop kind of base coat. And I'll need to do 2 base coats on this. Alright, I want to take my black paint and my flat brush, and I want to take my line away from where the letters are. So I'm going to go inside. I may have to do a little patching on my writing. I couldn't decide how far I wanted this to go before I did this. You'll be able to trace the line if you, you'll be able to see how you do it if you forget to plan. But I know I didn't want this line to go all the way exactly next to this, and I want it flat. Just a little bit of a break. Yeah. Adds a little something to it. Doesn't confuse the J, I guess, maybe is what I'm liking about it. Okay, and you'll take your highlight color, which is going to be, I think we'll just go straight into antique gold. And now this is going to be used with really thin on your liner brush. And so you're just going to roll your paintbrush in the paint. Now this one we're going to keep on the high parts. Let's zoom in. Okay. This is, I think I'll do this up through the middle of the letters. Okay, so what you do is up just in this middle area of each of these letters. I'm just going to give them a liner. Then let's see if we have some white paint, which I don't seem to have out yet. Get some white. I'm going to brush mix my white in about 1 to 1 in my antique gold. And then that will go within just highlight within the gold that you just put in there. Okay, I could like that. It's a little metallic look. If I think I need another little bit of the black down here, or I need to clean it up, then I could do a second coat. Okay. Awesome. Alright, let me get my paints out of my way. Alright, one of the techniques that I like to use when I'm getting ready to do my highlighting and things like that is use my yellow clickable pencil, which we call a Yellow Monster. And what I do is I want to sketch on where I'm going to be highlighting, where the high parts are. And you can do that, either sketch them or you can trace them. But I think when I sketch them right on the piece, this will come right off with water paint or, sorry, I'm focusing, water paint or varnish. So they will not stay on there when you get done painting. So I want to go ahead and mark where I'm going to go with my paintbrush. And then I think this one needs to be the high one right here. And that'll be the low. Now I'm designing this right on camera, so I have a little bit different perspective, or a different agenda, if you will. Okay, so now we'll get busy highlighting this. This is when we get to talk about a really fun brush, and let me go get those out. Alright, so the brushes we're going to use today are called the Dome Stencil Brush. And what's neat about these is they come in really microscopic sizes all the way up to really giant sizes. You're going to use this in a dry rubbing fashion where you're going to dip dry brush into paint, scrub off on your paper towel, and then rub on your highlights or your shading. And you've got to have them dry. You've got to have a couple of brushes so that you can dry them between changing colors and stuff like that. You need dry paper towel, folded flat, and then just several sizes. These are just really affordable brushes, so they are a keeper. We like affordable brushes that work really well. I'm going to use the 3/16 size today, and we need to find our shading color. Not our shading color, but our highlight color. I'm going to use the Soft Lilac. Now, the way we load this brush is take our paint into our dry brush. We're going to rub, oh, little spider, sorry guy. I'm going to rub on the paper towel and dry it off almost completely. And we want to not be using a wet palette either. Okay, and then you're going to start where you would be maybe on not the center of interest petal. So I'm going to start back here. I'm going to start in the strongest area. If it comes off too strongly, then you're going to need to wipe off more paint. And then possibly, maybe the color might be too strong as well, so you would want to watch for that kind of stuff. Okay. Reload as you need to. Gentle pressure at first, increasing your pressure. Careful about going over your edges. And so as I go down the middle, then I'm going to start softly lifting up pressure and going to each side to fade. You can actually do this with your eyes closed. And so you can already see the movement in the petals. You can already see that. And here in the middle where they meet, you can just join them so that they're not confusing the eye right there. Alright, I'm liking how that already looks like it's got a little bit of movement to it. Now I'm going to mix my white in my brush with this color that I have, which is the Soft Lilac. So I'll just mix them both and wipe them on the palette, then wipe off. Got to get light enough for this lighter area right here. Let that be the high point. And maybe not white enough, a little bit more white. Better to stop or to start a little bit too light than to and get that. And do we like that? Can we see it? That's the question. Now I'm going to reload into white only. Now you've got to be careful with this. You don't want it to be wet when you're doing this, because if it's wet it'll grab. But it's such dry paint that you're using that you probably won't notice a problem. Okay. They dry pretty quick. Alright, now I'll go back to that other purple color, dirty brush. The nice thing about this is I am dirty brushing my colors together. If you lose hairs on this, do expect to lose hairs, just brush them off the surface. You'll also get dust as well. Okay, and didn't mark this one, but I think I'll go here next. And this one's a little bit more awkward, so I'm going to go ahead and just go side to side. And that's going to be shaded down anyway, so. Okay, now what I want to do is I'm going to go into my same color, and I'm going to increase the highlight right down the middle of my streak of color there. Don't want it to go out to either edge. I want to keep it right in the middle. Okay, and then from there we want to go ahead and just let that be. We can erase what's left of our little lines with our eraser. Like I said, they'll come off with varnish too, but I like to not leave things to chance. Okay. And now if we look like we've gotten just a touch too stripy, what we can do is we can make this go shape following this way and widen it out just a little bit, because that'll bend up, so we can widen it and cup it just a little bit wider for both sides. And see how that fades that out just a little bit more. Alrighty. Now I've got to wash this brush because I am going to change colors, so when we wash the brush, then you have to have a dry brush again. So, because now we're going to do the same thing with our shadow. But what that means is you're going to need more than one brush. So while they're cheap brushes, you do need several. Okay, I'm going to use the same size brush, but a new one. And I'm going to use grape juice. And now I want this one to, this rubbing, if you will, to cup in an under direction. Well, actually, maybe I'm a liar. Maybe first I want it to go down the channel. Be careful with strong color. Spend a little more time on your paper towel if you're concerned about it. This one needs to be a little bit gentler because it's going to be a little bit more gradual than the highlights. Okay, now we're going to be increasing that purpleness of things. Notice I'm not going to spend a lot of time reloading and reloading until I establish some different color. Now I'll reload. And then this needs to stay right up the middle, and it needs not to be wet. So if we're wet, we have to wait, okay? And now this will go right up the middle. And then I'll start establishing a little bit more shape. And so we should start seeing a little bit of a high and a low. Okay, so that's a high, so we'll go over here and make this one a low. Oops. Okay, so starting to establish the ups and downs of things. It's very repetitive type of movement, but it's, like I said, it's very relaxing, very fun, and very forgiving. Deepening in size. So all of this light and color and all this stuff is, and I'm going to just watch how I'm walking over a little bit onto my white area, and that will blend the colors right there. But all this high and low stuff is all just an illusion of the colors that we use. So we get to say where we have, you know, the shadows and the stuff like that. Okay, so back here we are going to use the same color, gently though, because it's a lighter base. Now the neat thing about this is you don't have to get all the way on top of this little light petal in front, because we're going to shade this. So we're going to use the float to extend the color. So we use this to make expanded color, but then we use the float to join it all together. Okay. Now it's time to change colors. And do I think that that's true? Let's take a look at this a little bit more. I'm thinking I go ahead and go right over the top of that just a little bit, because mine, I think my white's got just a little bit lonely. And going over the top of that will help just blend everything together. And then we'll arch it under like it's going to, but not go over. Lots of dust. You know, even though this grape juice color is a strong color, what's neat about it is you don't have to worry about it taking over the world, because you're just using a light rubbing motion. Okay. Kind of appears before your eyes. It's kind of fun. This is going to have a highlight over there, I believe, so don't make it too crazy. Right now what I have is I have stuff laying everywhere. If you'll take your palette and put everything into a bucket, makes it really easy to grab, makes it really easy to get the heck out of your way. Now I can put this on the far side. Now I can move my palette around. If I have a, let's go for the whole, this is how you can organize yourself type thing. I'll get that gone. I have a little square. This is a collapsible water basin, which will do fantastic for watering your dog if you keep one in your glove box or whatever. Then you take your paper towel. Most accidents that I see when I teach classes and when I'm out, you know, teaching and stuff like that, happen because of disorganization on the palette area. Now, if I go in here with my water, I can come right down here and I can blot my paints and things go up here at the top. You don't put paints down here because then you're going to run your arm through them. Okay, and then when this all gets full, then all you do is you can actually just put all this stuff on top of here as long as your paints are dry down here, and swap sides. The water basin that I have here has a handy thing, pockets on either side, so that it will hold your brushes that you've used, so that you can remember to wash them when you're all done. And it has handles so that you can grab it and go. It comes in beautiful colors and this little canvas thing. Anyway, so if you will take and do just a little bit of organization, and then that all goes on my right side because I am right-handed, and then I am working on the same zone. If I have my project here and I have my water and my palette over here, then I'm going to be carrying paint and water across my piece, and then that is a recipe for disaster. So you always want to make sure that you get yourself a little bit organized, and when, like just now, I just started losing it. I was knocking over bottles of paint, I had my paper towel and my paint, you know, I just was an absolute mess. So that was my clue. Go ahead, stop, get reorganized before I make a disaster out of my project. And so on that note, I'm just going to get rid of this palette and throw it on the floor. Okay, so we were using grape juice, which I can find easily because it's in my bucket of paints. And I was showing you how to float. So let me slide this straight on over here. My paint is actually back there. So get our paintbrush wet, just dip the bristles in, blot it on your paper towel. You take a little corner of your, let's get closer. Okay, a little corner of paint on my brush. And then what I want to do is I want to keep all my floats, I want everything up at the top, and I want to move my way down for organization purposes. Then I want to press, when I'm using an angle shader, I'm back on my angle, and I'm pressing nice and hard, and I'm pushing all the way down to my ferrule. Okay, so that's all the way on the ground. Short, short, short. I can rock it back over, and I can do the back side, and just blend both sides. Really short little place of blending. Okay, and I'm off to the angle of, like when you're flat, you're up, straight up and down, but because this is an angle, I've got to be way down on my brush, on the angle of my brush. So I'm off to the side, and then a lot of times you'll see me painting and I'll even be down in a more handwriting position, like I had a pencil in my brush, in my hand. Okay, so what I need to do now on my piece is I need to, this center area right here is going to get dark, or darker. Okay, so what I want to do first is I'm going to go ahead and just shade kind of close to that edge. That edge is going to be a little bit light, so I'm just going to not shade right next to it. Got to shade, this one's on the top, so I've got to shade right next to that. I'll lift a little to an angle. Go back over it and maybe flatten that down. You don't need to wash your brush out each time that you reload. You can just reload a little bit of water and a little bit of paint and blend in the same exact spot. One of my very favorite techniques, there's a whole YouTube video on it, is to squirt. I've got my little vial of water. You squirt just a, squirt it yourself. Squirt a couple little drops of water, and then with the clean end of your brush you can pick up just what you need and go over here. You don't even need to reload paint. Go over there and then just re-blend, and now you're good to float again. A lot of time is spent washing your bristles or your brush, reblotting, reloading, reblending, and all that kind of stuff, and all you really need to do is just refresh your brush. Now that I've refreshed my brush, this side gets all the way to the edge. Also, the other thing that you'll find is that your paint gets prettier the more you just refresh and don't wash it out. Okay, so we'll leave that like that. I need to shade behind this petal. we'll use is we'll use the dry rubbing brush after we get the initial darkness on there. We'll use the dry rubbing brush to go ahead and extend our float out. Okay, so now we'll shade this back petal. We're going to shade this with the same grape juice color. And it's so interesting. There's a rule of painting called simultaneous contrast. And this is the same grape juice color that I'm using on here. And because this is on a lighter background, or on a lighter color, I find it fascinating how red that looks right there compared to how purple that looks right there. So sometimes when you use the same color on a different color background, it's really going to change. So if you know that and you expect it, then it makes it a little bit easier to paint. And please don't forget that you can turn your piece when you're painting. Okay, and then the nice thing I like about ankle shaders is they tuck in there without wiping off everything that I've done in that same spot. To a 1/4 dome stencil brush, and I'm using the grape juice color. And now what I need to do is I need to extend the dark area in here. So I floated next to the edge, and now I need to extend that up and out. So isn't that lovely? You don't have to float it and float and walk and do all those kinds of tricky techniques. And that's what I love about dry rub brushing, or dry brush rubbing, whatever you want to call it. And then as you walk it out, just lift up on your pressure, and that will make that fade. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same here in the center, which I didn't float this one because it's nice and wide open. I wasn't ready to lose my definition between the petals either. Okay, need to repeat. As long as you walk between or rotate between them as they dry, then repeating won't be as tricky. Remember that thing about stippling. Here, feel it. If it feels cold, then you might still have a wet area. So we'll just gentle on here because this color is much lighter. And I think we can go dirty brush into the next darker color. Okay, I'm going to sneak in to see if this color will look alright. This is Admiral Blue. And this is going to be lighter and covering less area. Now I'm going to float this in just a second, but I just wanted to deepen it while I had my brush dirty. Okay, we won't do this back petal in that. Keep that looking more purple than the pinky purple. Okay, so we're going to use the same Admiral Blue, and we're going to go ahead and refloat to deepen in those darker areas. And so to do that, we're just going to shove this brush in, drag it out, and then just tap. You could use a little mop or something if you wanted to. In this case, just a little tap with the finger does the trick. And here we're going to right up next to. And then what I'm doing now is I'm rocking back on the back part of my brush. If you could see, that would be helpful. I'm on the clean part of my brush to extend that float water out. And that will extend it so that you don't have a bunch of messy stuff dragging along behind you. Okay, same thing here. We're going to go ahead and float to deepen. Lifting up on the toe. Okay. And we're going to have to deepen here. Remember, just refresh your brush. You don't have to actually clean it out. Alright, now we're going to add some line work. We're going to thinned Admiral Blue. And then I'm going to tip this so that I can see what I'm doing. And you just want to start in the darkest area and just make some very natural looking lines. Now as you get out here and your paint has decided to wear out just a little, you can add a little bit of extra like vein line type things. Very, 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 very soft and in the background. Okay, now I'm going to repeat darker and much shorter lines. And some going long. Okay, see how much that darkened that up. Now the idea is to have these vein lines be very, very, very soft, so please, please, please don't, somebody pleading, don't get over excited with those. It's just like a tickle. Very, very soft. Back there somewhere. You want to make people guess and see if they're seeing them. Okay, darker. Do not make them all the same length because then they'll look like just a blunt line of like some mutant eyelash or something like that. As you run out of paint, come out there and give yourself these ooh, that's a dark one. So what do we do when we have a dark one? Just go give it a little blot. Mind how you've got your paint loaded on your brush, that you're on your tippy toe of your liner brush. That will make all the difference in the world. And then repeat the lines down here at the base so that they get darker and thicker. Alright, so we're going to deepen this. We've done our lining. We're going to deepen our float with Payne's Gray. Pardon me. Okay, now this is going to cover up some of our lines here, but we'll just put those back in. And we want this to be less. So cover less area, just tuck that in. It's a little, almost like a little scoop action when I do my brush. It's not a turning my handle. Notice that, watch again on this side. Okay, watch my hand more than, let's move it down, so watch my hand. Notice what moves. Just the brush is being shoved into that corner and then pulled back out. And so it's a little tap, 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 but none of this is moving. Real important to pay attention to when you're painting is when you watch your teacher's hand, you learn way more about what you're doing with your brush. You know, notice when you're painting, whoops, okay, notice when you're painting if the teacher is really gripping it up front or way back here. If they're way back here, it tends to be a looser style. If they're way choked up on it, then it tends to be something that has a little bit more guidance and direction to it. So watch and see what you can't learn from watching how your teacher is holding her brush. So now notice I'm patting it in, and I am leading with the back. I'm putting the back down first and then shoving the little nose of the brush or the toe of the brush in there. Okay. There we go. That deepened that nicely. And I do think that we could go ahead with a rather narrow float. And so deepen this back area. Be careful not to wipe off what I've already put in there. Okay, and then maybe just a little bit back here. Real narrow back here. On that note, I think that we need to deepen in here with a little bit of, I can't remember what this color is, I'll have to look in a second. Okay, yeah, like that. And then just around this turn here. Okay, we're going to repeat lining with Payne's Gray, thin, just like we did on the other lines. Every line you want to do it with really thin paint. Now these are going to layer over different spots. Never try to hit the same spot that you hit before. And I don't know if I'm worried about doing any of those veins this time. I think I want these maybe just a little bit shorter. And so when we do this, we can get stronger and stronger colored. Closer and closer and tighter and tighter. Okay, see how that's just getting a nice, lovely dark center right there. Remember, we don't want them all to line up like little soldiers, so you got to make sure that they vary. Within the grape juice, and do the vein type thingy bobber with that. Oh, it helps that I have some paint on my brush. Shape following. You want to pretend like this isn't even out. That you want to pretend this is obviously hiding underneath that petal. So what you've got to do is you've got to pretend like this stroke is going straight through that petal, and that can be kind of tricky sometimes. So you want to make sure that your lines line up like that. These should be straighter, not too far over to the edge, because they would be tracking through that petal underneath. I know that sounds a little strange, but I think you get what I mean. Okay, and then we want those little veiny things that we did the other day. I am just so on the hair of my brush. There's hardly anything out there. It almost looks like chicken scratch, but ooh, that's too dark. Very light through the white areas. Okay. I think we'll add just a little bit of our Payne's Gray, and then put in a little bit deeper, darker set of getting pretty. I like it. Colors are really nice. Still need to deepen our dark lines, so I'm going to mix black, lamp black, with Payne's Gray to get a little deeply dark blue black. And this should be a little bit more solid, a little bit more put together. Stay out of your light areas. You always want to start your lining where the line is going to be the bluntest and then flick it out so that it has a graduated look. When you're flicking back, it will make a more graceful thin line if you allow your hand that ability to flick as you're lining. Now in some pictures of pansies, I see that the lines are way more lined up. And so if you want to make a more realistic pansy, then you are welcome to go ahead and line those up real tight. I like it just a little bit more open. So it makes this folk art, right? So we can decide what we like. Darker towards the middle. Okay, now we need to do a little bit of floating on our edge of our petals. Let's go backwards so we can drag our whole little bucket of stuff here. I think we may need to I think we need our wisteria, and let's try wisteria by itself first. Okay, I'm going to use the same angle shader, and this is going to be a much smaller float. I don't want a big float for this. Okay, now I had plans here. Looking at pictures. Okay, so what I want to do is just keep turning this around, I guess. Use an angle and just float right on the edge of that. We don't want it to line. This is more about the edges turning back than anything else. So we want erase those lines. We want that to look like it's flipped down and around. This one done too. Okay. And that back one might need white. Yeah, because this is going to be just get you on camera. So under just a little bit of a white float back here. A little bit of a rollback. Okay. I think we can. Let's go ahead back into our purple, what is it? Wisteria color. I want to bring this right here as a rolled kind of edge. Oops, I want to stay out of my dark area. Yikes. When you can't see where your brush is heading, it's always a bad idea to float blind. That gives that just that little impression that that's turned. A little bit stronger there. Our gold lines. These are honey brown. Probably will need to repeat these so we don't just do them one time. And see, now that I've got those gold lines in there, I'm not certain that I don't need longer lines of my dark. And so I will go back into the black and the Payne's Gray. We'll make those longer out there. And then rebuild the gold. Okay, well that's drying. I think we need to talk about our shading on our leaves. So we're going to do our shading with plantation pine. So the immediate thing that we'll do is we'll shade plantation pine against the leaf, against the petals on the leaf, sorry, to deepen that in. A darker green. I need a darker green. We will take our honey brown and repeat that step. Ooh, that's kind of always tough. You got a big glom of paint on the tip of your brush. That's not going to improve when you set it down. So make sure that you've got what you want on there. I like that picks up that gold in the bottom part there. We'll want our antique gold. We'll repeat the same thing, thinned paint to highlight that. Nice and brighter. Yellow monster marker, and we're going to trace on our leaf, nice and graceful. And then we're going to decide, how these leaves are bending or whatever like that. And I think that this one should get a highlight right across here, and then another one here, just like with the little bend in the middle. And then I think this one gets highlighted across here. So then what we'll do is we'll switch to our small shaders, our small dry red brushes. And I don't know about celery. We'll see. Maybe we want to go brighter. I had somebody once asked me why we mix colors. Well, the reason why is even with 300 colors in a bottle line, we're still not going to be perfect and have exactly the color we always want. I'm using the Hauser medium green with the celery green. Oops. And I'm going to start just rubbing straight across there. Now, if I screw up and I get stuff on my black, I can always re-black my piece. So we'll do this to show high and low. And then this will show high and low going in this direction. Okay, so we have a little bit of a ribbony kind of effect. And let's do our highlight up there. It's kind of a little double highlight whammy there, huh? Okay, now we pick up just a little bit more into the celery. Highlight where the center highest part will be. Okay, up the middle. Okay. I love how that just starts looking shiny right there. That is just fantastic. That's when, this is the fun stuff. Love to make things change just by using color. Okay, now that looks a little bit stripy, so I'll soften it just a little bit. I've got my little letter H going on there. However, I have an evil plan. Baha-ha. What I can do to soften that A is just go ahead and flex it out. Okay. Let's get a little bit more. Wash the brush. Shading I got out. Black, green, and evergreen. Let's see, I think we're going to just jump right into black, green. And repeat our shadow. Never want to shade too quickly. You don't want to jump too fast. I need that deeply dark that's right next to items when they are shading each other, and I think that that's definitely just fine. So black, green. Tuck it on in there, and then I do another swipe gently with the leading with the back end of my brush to clean things up. Okay, now we've got to get a vein in there. And I think for these purposes, I think I'm going to float this in. Okay, and that took out my letter H almost. Okay. Scary thing. We get to take a little bit of wisteria and our white. mostly white. And we get to make a mix out of it. We're going to load it with, it's not thin, kind of heavy on the end of our brush. And we're going to do that little weird thing. It's going to feel freakish because it's going to be so bright. That pansies have. Okay. One more over here. And that ought to make you go, ow! Okay. And maybe we'll add just a little bit more of the brighter yellow now that we've got that. Something for it to stand on. Now, we need to carry our colors around just a little bit. Like we've got our green's a little bit, maybe our green's a little bit isolated, but maybe not. We'll let this sit for a second. But let's go in and repeat with celery to strengthen our highlight areas on our leaves. Now remember, these are support rolls. They are not, we're not wanting this to scream at us from the leaf standpoint. We want the leaves to be secondary. Okay, so we got that high point. Over here, we'll do the same thing. I'm thinking that we will probably be able to go ahead and spatter. We need to spatter on our flour. So what we need to do is mask a little bit. What you can do when you're masking is you can take some paper towels and you can just mask off the different areas you don't want to have hit with spatters. Okay, I don't want to end up with an all purple background there. Okay, and then we're going to use this filbert comb brush, and I think we'll go ahead and we'll spatter something dark. I'm thinking like the Payne's Gray plus the grape juice mixed 1-to-1. I'm going to use my you want to mix a lot of water when you spatter. Thinned grape juice plus Payne's Gray. And then we're going to anchor this and then give it a nice heavy-duty whack right where you want it. So your brush needs to be right over your piece. Okay, so just a little bit got on the back pedal, which I think I'm okay with. So, you know, if I have to lay out paper towels again, I guess I can do that. So I'll take my mask away. Neat, I like that. Okay, now what I think I want to do is I want to wait. Now remember, spatters take a while to dry. So what I think I want to do is I want to go ahead and spatter some green in these over the leaf areas so that it's just a little bit more of something. But I just had an idea. Let's take our, let's see, maybe the yellow color. I lost my paper towel. The antique gold color. And try rub it on your paper towel, staying out of your spatters, please. And let's make this leading area right here have just a little kiss of gold on it. I like that. That's just a little pick-me-up. On the higher edge here. Yeah, that's just a little bit of something. Okay, I'm liking. Okay, do I want a little bit of this yellow on my pansy? I wonder what would happen. Okay, so here's where we go. Ah! Just a dusting of it. Kind of like that. Maybe we'll go a little bit up here. Just wiped off spatter. Are we dry yet? No, we're not dry yet. Okay, I gotta be careful. Okay, I think I'll go hit the blow dryer. See what I did? I ran through one. Okay, here's a little trick. This is my wave eraser. I'm going to dip it into water. And because when you dip this eraser into water, it will take off fresh, dried paint. When you do it dry, it won't take anything off. There. Now my smear is gone. Okay, time to hit the blow dryer. All kinds of dust and everything. So when I get done, I will go through and clean up my little edges where the dry rubbing just went off. Okay, I definitely know that we need a little bit of our spatters in our green. Okay, so we'll mask again. This time we'll mask the part. Goes right up there. Okay, see how I don't care if a spatter lands right there, then I can get it off with a paper towel or something like that. Okay, I think I'm going to do this in several passes and start with my, what is this one? I think it's evergreen. Always tap your spatters off on. Okay. Tap it off on an area you don't care about. So now the neat thing about just masking this with a paper towel is I can look at it and say, okay, do I like that? I think I do. Bring it back. I'm going to go into a little bit brighter, which is going to be the Hauser medium green. Keep that more to the light side. And then I think we need 1 or 2 antique gold spatters. Let us see what we've done here. Ah, there we go. Okay, let's take a look. I think might need just a little bit of something down here. Rest of the area, and we'll go in with the honey brown. I think, let's see, let me turn so I can get a good angle. Drop just a couple of little spatters down there, and then just a little bit of the brighter yellow. Okay, yeah, I like that. That makes everybody a little bit happier. Probably need a little bit of a white spatter up there. I'll leave it for right now because I'm not real sure. 2 lines that don't quite meet here in the corners, and I was thinking, you know, we probably could use another one. These tapes come in all these different widths, which I absolutely love. It also stretches when you're taping. It is, we call it stretchy tape. And if I can find an end on this puppy, ha. The other thing that it does is it measures for you. So what we can do, it's a way too long piece, oh well, is I can put this right next to that, and I will know that that's exactly 1/8 of an inch. And then that's nice and taped off. I want these just a little bit shorter and a little bit finer line than the other one. And then I can take my round brush, if I can find one. Well, I guess I can take my flat brush. And you want to make sure you always press down really well. And maybe that's a little bit too thick. Okay, so we'll just go there with our paint. just peel it off, and you do not reuse this tape. There, nice, thin, graceful line. Okay, and of course you wait for that to dry. Just a little bit of interest on the scallops on this. We're just going to dry rub just a little bit of grape juice up there. Just as much interest as you want it to be. So go in and we'll just patch with a little bit of black paint wherever we have biffed our pattern. And one of the things that tin is notorious for is it is notorious for peeling and chipping. Now I got to tell you, I am an absolute fan of the medium that we use to base this. I based this piece of plastic here, this little bottle opener, and where I based it with the medium, it hasn't chipped or scraped off at all. So I really am a big fan. I didn't do the edges and everything completely yet. So I don't think we're going to have a big problem, but there is a trick that you can use. We're going to go ahead and we're going to varnish this piece. I'm going to use the Traditions varnish, and then when we get done and it's dry, we're going to put a coat of wax on the piece. And the wax is going to prevent the two pieces of metal from conflicting. We are ready to finish our piece. Let's get it out. We're going to use the Clapham Salad Bowl wax, and that is just the most phenomenal wax product that you could ever get. It's food safe. I mean, you can put it right over your painted piece. You do want to make sure that you are finished varnishing and stuff, because if you try to put water and things on top of wax, then it obviously won't work, because wax will resist. So all you're going to do is make sure you have all your finish on that you want, and just lightly buff a coat of wax on there. Allow it to dry. It'll take at least a day to dry. This is going to make the nicest finish. You are just going to love the fact that your tin won't chip, and that if you put it on a food type of product, like you know, a tray or something like that, you'll be able to serve your food right on there and not worry about people getting bad side effects from our paint. So anyway, you'll let this dry at least a day, depending on the weather and things that are going on, and then buff it with a nice lint-free towel, and you'll do all your surfaces. I would go ahead and do the inside of my scallops here, so that the wax is against wax, and then that will help everybody not chip, and everything will get along much better. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me for the Les Jardins Pansy, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.